average person in California right now is paying somewhere between $500 and $2,000 a month for electricity.
They're basically leasing space on your roof. They're putting a solar system on there. They're responsible for the maintenance. They're responsible for replacing batteries, doing all those things. And they guarantee you a set rate.
California government recently signed more than 24 housing bills aimed at boosting housing production.
We already had a massive housing deficit. Then you bring 10 to 13 million people into that equation. But now you have this robust demand.
Well, Josh, thanks for being here with me, man.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Oh, man, I'm so grateful that to know you. And I tell people all the time, we've been friends a long time, but you're that guy here in Redding that is funny. I talk to realtors all the time and they're like, I've never met that man.
Well, the clients know us, and the agents know us probably over the phone, but I don't go out and party too much.
Yeah, well, you got 4 kids.
Yeah, I'm a pretty busy guy at home.
I just got lucky because early in my career, some of our friends knew you, and man, that just feels like that was 2 summers ago, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah, it has been. I think I met you when you were 20 or 21.
Yeah,
something like that.
I had a full head of hair.
You did, man. That's right. I mean, you're still a good looking guy. If I lose my hair, I'm in big trouble.
You're not. If you haven't at this point, you're probably okay.
I'll probably be okay. Yeah, we've known each other a long time, running a lot of the similar circles, and but close friends, church, and work is pretty much what I've got time for, right?
Yep.
So
work, church, family, and a little hunting here and there.
Oh, well, I go with you. For all of your listeners, I go hunting with you, but you're the hunter.
Oh man, I just like being out there, man. It's a blast. It's good for people that have tense jobs where they're working hard. It's just the woods is a good place to be.
It is. I feel very connected to the Lord there. I'm grateful when I'm out there. When you're out in God's creation and just taking in a few days of just fresh air and trees and solitude, you start to realize just again how small you are.
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you realize it puts everything in my life into perspective. We're probably saying the same thing, but I carry a certain amount of stress, whether I think I do or not. And I get out and put my back against a tree for 4 or 5 days in the woods with no cell reception. And in the end, I just realized, like, man, life is good. Like that oak tree that I just laid my back against, it's not worried about the economy.
No, it's not.
It's going to keep growing.
Yeah.
And it's going to be there next year when I come back to it.
That's right.
And it just changes the way I think.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's a good word.
Well, I wanted to talk to you. It's February. And
it's March 1st now.
Oh, it's March.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's March 1st. We want to talk about real estate because obviously you are very connected to real estate, and we live in Redding, California, and we both love it here. But you have a pulse on real estate on a broader level because of being a coach and having a lot of clients all over the country. And so obviously buyers right now, it's a challenge for them. It is just a challenge when they look at prices, rates, and now they're dealing with, in some states, insurance costs, and now electricity, which you and I have been talking about. And if we can get to that, we will. I wanted to start by just talking with you a little bit about, what are some of the things that buyers should be thinking about right now? Because I think a lot of buyers right now are starting to catch on to waiting may not be the best decision. And so what would you say to someone who's looking at getting into the market right now, some things that they should be thinking through?
That's a really good question. I think that most of the savvier buyers that we work with, I think they're thinking about, how long they plan on being in the property is probably one of the very first questions they ask themselves. If they're going to be there for just a very short period of time, then probably renting would be a pretty wise decision.
Yeah.
And then if once you get to that 2-3 year mark or longer, that's, I think, when people start to enter the question, well, maybe it might be a good idea to purchase instead. For those who are on the sideline and maybe waiting for interest rates, things like that, I think Warren Buffett probably says it best, where interest rates kind of serve as gravity to value. So as the rate goes up, it's like turning up the gravity and it pulls value down. So right now, home prices are what they are based on interest rates at 7.25%. But if rates were to drop, let's say 1%, the likelihood of home values going up is highly likely.
Highly.
And that's because the buying purchasing power would increase by about 10%. And so the question a buyer has to ask is, well, should I purchase now and then refinance at a later date? Or should I wait till later when the rates are lower, but pay more for the house? And, that's a decision that people have to make individually. I guess it depends on how bad you want to be, paying a landlord or paying yourself.
Yeah. It really comes down to their risk, the tolerance of risk. Either way, they're making a risk. And I think that a lot of people, and the other thing is this, there's some buyers that simply can't right now. And so we're talking about people that could.
Right.
And for those that could, they need to get this information and really think through it. When we think about this next year ahead, it's a crazy year. It's 2024. We've got not only an election in our country, but I think there's like 50. It's the biggest election year for leaders of countries ever.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I didn't. Mm-mm.
So we have all this stuff going on in our nation globally. We've got the Fed, holding rates higher. And the pulse that I get from many of my clients, my friends, is just this feeling of holding back on making big decisions because they don't know what to expect. It's hard to see the future right now. So specifically with real estate, Josh, what are some of the things that you're seeing with real estate, whether it's pricing or even inventory? I would like to talk about that too.
Okay. Well, I mean, pricing and inventory actually kind of go hand in hand. Another way to look at it is supply and demand, right? So right now, inventory is low relative to what it has been historically by an average of 50% if you look over the last 5 years. So right now we're sitting about 450 homes for sale. There was 202 homes, I think, last month that went pending.
It's in Shasta County, yeah.
That's in Shasta County, yeah. Thank you for that. And so, we're sitting on under a 3-month absorption rate, meaning that it would take less than 3 months to sell off our entire inventory if nothing else came up for sale. We're very firmly in what we would call a seller's market. It doesn't always feel like that, though, because of the pressure that's been put on buyers with the interest rates. Yeah. So even though by terminology, we're in a seller's market, buyers can only afford what the numbers say they can afford based on the interest rates and their income. And so there's that challenge there. But I'm extremely optimistic about what the housing market will look like going forward. All politics aside, if you look at what's happened in the last 3 years in terms of the amount of migration that's come into the country, I don't know the exact numbers, but I've heard as low as 10 million. I've heard as high as 13 million. And I think the median age, based on some of the more recent reports I've looked at, the median age of that person is actually over 18 years old. And that is going to have an immediate impact on the demand for housing in the future.
It is.
The last time I checked, it takes 18 years and 9 months to grow an 18-year-old. And now we've got 10 to 13 million of them that we weren't accounting for 4 years ago.
It's massive.
So yes. So for those reasons alone, I think that housing is likely to be more expensive in the future, not less.
Yeah. I want to read this article that I was telling you about earlier. This was in the Affordable Housing Finance magazine this last week. California Governor Newsom recently signed more than 24 housing bills aimed at boosting housing production in the state. There was actually one from the White House that came out yesterday announcing a very similar trend. The acute affordability crisis we're experiencing in California was decades in the making, and now we're taking the necessary steps to fix it, said Newsom, who signed the legislation at an affordable housing development in Oakland. And it goes on to basically say all of these bills are aimed at high density, relaxing codes, streamlining codes, and holding counties accountable to doing their job, which I won't get into that. But I just, when I look at what came out yesterday from the White House, which is the Biden administration's, the bill that they're trying to push to create inventory, it seems like the future. And the reason why I want to talk about this, because I think people that are buying properties, looking at where things are going is something that can be a useful tool.
Sure.
It seems like a lot of it is geared towards high density ADUs. And so what are your thoughts on that? And what do you kind of see with some of this going forward?
I mean, some of it's a big fat nothing burger.
True.
And
True.
and some of it's probably fairly legitimate. I mean, again, going back to my previous comment, I just to kind of to create, a narrative around the problem. We already had a massive housing deficit. Then you bring, 10 to 13 million people into that equation. And now you have this robust demand that clearly needs to be resolved. The real question is, what's the fastest way to resolve it? And I think that's where the challenges are coming in.
Newsom thinks it's tiny homes.
It could be a very small portion of it could be tiny homes, but there's no way that ADUs are going to be the solution to this problem.
No.
It's a cost prohibitive. I think a lot of, excuse me. I think a lot of builders, it's hard to build price per square foot.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to build a single ADU because it's got 4 walls to it, and a roof and just about everything else that a single family home has. And so it's just the economy of scale isn't there. And so maybe, what we could be talking about is condoing out some existing buildings that are sitting in larger cities.
Yeah.
That might be the fastest way to come up with a solution.
You're talking like commercial buildings?
Sure. I mean, we already know that there's been this massive shift in, what higher density commercial building space looks like. It's mostly vacant.
Yep.
And cities aren't collecting any tax revenue from it because it's vacant, and, the landlord's likely to lose it to foreclosure anyway. So for them to go in and do, a condo type of conversion with some of these larger buildings might be a faster solution.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be quote unquote in my backyard as a homeowner.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not many people are going to be complaining about it.
Yep.
I feel like that's likely going to be a direction that they can go because the cities have a huge problem.
Yeah.
They do. I mean, you look at San Francisco and the number of square footage of office space that's sitting vacant. That's phase 1 of the problem. Phase 2 is that the city is supposed to collect revenue based on the valuations of those buildings.
Yep.
Well, if those buildings were built at $800 a foot and they foreclose at $200 a foot, the city's not going to get as much revenue.
Yes.
They got to fund fire, police, EMS, curb, gutter, street, sidewalks, trash. I think that the real solutions, and they're not talking about them yet, are going to be, they have to be much larger than they're doing right now.
Yeah.
It ain't ADUs.
It probably has to be a little bit of everything.
It really does. I mean, ADU is going to be, if anything, a signal that, hey, anything helps. And I don't disagree with that. But to put that kind of unnecessary pressure on the county, other than to give the county a little bit more cover. So what people don't realize, when the city of Reading adopted their city plan, their general plan, they were kind of stuck. Like, we voted on this. This is our general plan. As a planner, you can't just go in and change the general plan. There's a process that you have to go through, and there's a comment period. And, like I said, not in my backyard situations start popping up and the neighbors start protesting it and those kinds of things. When the state comes in and says, no, you will do this, then it gives the county and it gives the city the cover they need to be able to make modifications to the general plan because it's a state mandated requirement.
Yeah.
And so from that perspective, that's good.
Yeah.
But to force the county to direct development in a particular way, that's hard. You're playing with really difficult scenarios because it's not the county's money. These are private entities that have to build this stuff.
Yeah. Well, I just, what I hear you saying and with what I read, I do believe that we're in the midst of a major transition. And I just,
Agreed.
I do believe in the next couple of years, we are going to see a little bit of signs of optimism with the inventory problem, because the inventory problem is not a new problem. It's been around for what, 6-7 years now?
Yeah, I'd say probably since 2016-ish. I mean, locally, it's been since the car fire that we've never rebounded since.
Right. Yeah. We've definitely had some unique problems here. California's had an inventory problem. But the ADU issue isn't new either. I mean, that came out 5 years ago. So I agree with you. I think that it could help. I think it could be a great opportunity for home buyers right now, or people that own a home, to take advantage of bills like SB9 to create some additional value. But I don't think it's going to solve the problem.
No, it's a less restrictive housing policy. And every little dwelling helps. And I think that's the signal that it's sending. But I don't have faith that that's the solution to what we really are dealing with. Infill is probably the answer. Higher density is probably the answer. But even then, the fastest way to do it is, I mean, is it to go build more real estate, or is it to convert the existing real estate?
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I have seen that in some of the bills, they are talking about making it easier for commercial buildings to be converted to residential. I haven't seen anything happen with that yet.
Well, it's challenging. I'm not going to sell it short in terms of the challenges it brings, because it wasn't ever designed for, for a housing development, right? So you've got plumbing issues, parking issues, circulation, fire escape. There's a lot of issues that need to get resolved, but I'm confident that it's probably the least path of resistance to solving the problem.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I wanted to talk about. So we're talking about affordability right now, and here in California in January, PG&E raised their rates. I want to say 38% in January. Speculated to go somewhere between 15 and 18% per year. We already see what the track record's been.
Yeah.
And we have a challenge in California with the California Fair Plan right now, where, if someone's going to buy a property that's not in the city of Redding or in a city, they're going to be looking at one of the high cost utility companies like Edison down in Southern California, or PG&E. And with the recent raise in the bill, I mean, the average person in California right now is paying somewhere between $500 and $2,000 a month for electricity in 2024. And so, you and I have been in this discussion about power and how, I don't think you and I ever thought, you being in real estate, me being in lending, that we would be talking to our clients about ways that they can get their energy bills down. But I would love to hear your thoughts on, some of the solutions we've been talking about with that, and some of the trends we're looking at with solar.
Well, the first one is kids turn the lights off,
or wife go, buy smart vents and lights so they turn off automatically. I'm going to do that in my own house.
Are you?
Because I've been telling my wife to turn the lights off for 14 years. At what point do I realize it's not going to happen?
It's not happening.
So I just realized I need to get smart lights.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I got to be very honest. I'm actually that guy. I leave all the lights on in the house. It puts me in a good mood. And my wife's like, "You're wasting a ton of money." I'm like, "But I feel good." So, I'm that guy. I would agree. I think it's been really strange that we've had to think about that for our clients. I mean, the solar thing's been going on for probably the last 5 or 6 years, where we've seen it picking up traction finally. I think there's some good incentives out there, which we can talk about if you want. The fire insurance issue, probably people listen to this, I don't need to tell them, especially if they're in California, that it's a nightmare now. I mean, I just had a friend of mine that lives in a beautiful home. And when they bought the property, it was a $4,000 a month issue, or I'm sorry, a $4,000 a year insurance policy. It's now $19,000. I mean, it goes without saying, it goes without saying he's shopping for a new policy. And those kinds of stories are more and more prevalent. So, no longer is living on a greenbelt necessarily the best thing because, you have some extra considerations you didn't have before. But the solar one, it's been interesting because when they started talking about, in California in particular, shifting to renewable energy, solar being probably that primary one over wind or anything else, we were thinking that they would likely build this massive solar farm somewhere and start distributing power. It doesn't appear to be what they're going to do. In fact, I think what they're going to do most likely is they're just going to use everybody's rooftop as a power farm, if you will. And probably a lot of those will have batteries to store power. And the grid will become predominantly solar generated from solar panels on houses.
Yep.
And so it's kind of a good thing because we can, you could take a public utility like City of Redding, super inexpensive, but if you're in PG&E, again, people listening to this are on it, they're like, that PG&E is not so great. It's pretty expensive.
Very expensive.
So these renewable solutions with solar are huge. And now there's loans that are now coming out that I've been talking about where folks are going to be able to get actually become their own utility company. They can hire a utility company. They basically lease the space on your roof and your power bill's fixed.
Yep.
And it's less than what PG&E was.
Yep.
This is going to be interesting for us in the brokerage world going forward.
Yeah.
Big opportunity.
Yeah, no, it is. It's very interesting. One of my, Brian Decker, he had explained it to me in a way that was really interesting. He said, PG&E is one of the last monopolies in California. He said, think about it. When you go and buy a house or move to a property, you can shop for your insurance, you can pick your mortgage lender, you can do everything you want to do. But when it comes to the power that you're going to buy for that property, you have no choice who to use. And at any given time, they can tell you that they're changing your bill, or they can turn it off at any given time. And so, it's a great time for something like this to come out. And, solar, as you know, for most people has been really difficult to buy because the average person doesn't have $70,000 laying around.
Yep.
And the financing tools that have been out there for the last few years, they just don't make sense. I mean, it's such a long time for them to get into the
break
even that, most people, they want it, but they just don't have a way to do it. So I'm really excited to be, a part of this and to have tools like this home energy assessment report, which, a few years ago, we would have never thought that we would need an inspection like that for a buyer, but it's really cool to have something like right now.
It is, when I saw that report you shared with me, it just kind of dawned on me that, it's like coaching you how to minimize your monthly obligations. You know what I mean? And it's something you have some control over, So the report that you're talking about where I think you're talking about the one where it basically does an assessment of your house completely and gives you recommendations even without solar. And then it also talks about when you put solar on, what that difference might be based on if you were in PG&E, for example.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which I just think that you're right. People spend more time shopping an interest rate for a loan than they do shopping their utility company.
Yep.
I think that's going to change. I think they're going to shop both. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think they're going to go back and look at both now and say, hold on a second here. You guys are PG&E. I think I'm going to look at this solution here and have them put a solar on my roof, lock me in at a rate for a long period of time. And now I don't have to worry about those blackouts or brownouts. I mean, just the other day we had PG&E go out, put 2,000 people out of power for half the day.
Oh, I've had it many times.
Yeah. And it's, it's got to be just I'm in the city of Redding. So, I mean, very reliable power. But PG&E, it sucks.
Oh, it's a pain. I mean, last year, my friend Jason was out of town and power went off in our neighborhood. I'm on PG&E. I have solar and I have a generator because I got it back in 2018 before any of this stuff existed. And he called me. He's like, man, she's got the babies down there. They're walking around with headlamps on. We can go down there and help her with the generator.
Headlamps. That's terrible.
Yeah. With generator.
Yeah.
And so it's just it's such a pain. And so, for people listening, a lot of people aren't aware, but there is an opportunity right now in California that didn't exist very long ago where you can actually get into solar with zero out of pocket, the state-of-the-art panels, backup battery system, and even a new roof. And if it's something you want to know about, we're going to put some links in the description. Or if you're an existing homeowner or someone wants to buy a house, we talked about the home energy assessment report. Think of it as a home inspection. This is something that's totally free, and it'll give you all the information on any property in America, telling you what the bill is, ways that you can save money with your own money, just getting simple upgrades, but also all of these options that are available right now. So we'll definitely put that in the description.
No, that's good. And, the gentleman that you'd introduced me to, I had a lot of questions about it because one of the things that we don't like in real estate very much is solar leases. Because if the lease wasn't very good to start with, and now you're expecting somebody to assume a bad lease, if you will, it could have an effect on whether or not that property even sells.
I've seen it happen.
Yeah. And so what I liked about what this company's doing is that, again, they're basically leasing space on your roof. They're putting a solar system on there. They're responsible for the maintenance. They're responsible for the maintaining replacing batteries, doing all those things. And they guarantee you a set rate for your power for like 20 years. And what I also liked about it was that if the person wants to sell that property, they just simply transfer the utility over to the next buyer, and it's an automatic qualifier.
No credit run. No payment to inherit.
Nothing.
It's
a utility company.
Yep.
And the rate is better than what you're going to get on PG&E. So I was kind of blown away by it. I'm very confident that this is going to be the direction that the entire state's going to go here real soon.
Yep.
So I was, for a real estate company, I mean, for us, we want to make sure our consumers are able to, not have a lease on a solar system have an impact on what they can afford to buy.
Totally.
It's just not fair. So this is going to be a really cool thing.
Yeah, me too. Well, Josh, I've taken a lot of your time. I know you've got things to do, but I appreciate you stopping by today, man.
I appreciate you too, man. Thanks a lot for everything you do for all of our clients. We couldn't say enough good things about you guys.
Oh, I appreciate that. I'll pay you later. For those that are listening, please make sure to like, subscribe, download, hit those notifications. And if you have any questions about anything we talked about, drop them in the comments. I reply to them all the time. Appreciate you. We'll see you next time.